Hello, my name is Matthias. Welcome to the FPL Scope and my very first video of this FPL season. I know it's a bit late, but I have a pretty good reason for that, and it's down to the fact that I had a pretty big health scare in my immediate family a couple weeks back. But thankfully, that's looking good now. Everything's fine, back to normal. Very thankful for that personally, obviously. And now I'm just excited to go ahead with the new FPL season with everything else in order, thankfully. So yeah, this is basically going to be my first video, so I have a lot of thoughts of FPL, but I figured I should just go through my team as it currently stands about a week before FPL launches. But first I want to just touch a little bit on the new rules and stuff, because yeah, new rules I guess, but yeah, I haven't been able to talk about the rule changes for this season yet, so I'm really excited for it. I really like the fact that you can save up transfers and the fact that you can save transfers through wildcards and free hits. The bonus system thing seems decent enough, I guess. The adjustments there. Going to change the outlook of the team probably a little bit, but in general, the transfer thing I think is really, really good. It opens up the game way more in terms of different strategies, different ways of playing. I think it's going to be less template in terms of the teams. You've already seen that. The current template team is sort of like, do you go with Haaland? Do you go with Salah? Do you go with both? Do you go with neither? There's a bit of a mixture in terms of how to approach the team this year, and I think that's just going to be even more the case once we get into the season and we have different stages of transfers. Some people might have 5 transfers available and can change their team super quickly. Others might just have 1 free transfer available when there's a major shift in terms of injuries and stuff. So it's going to be a very fun season, I think. I'm really excited for it in general. And I also think the pricing this season is really, really good. You have to make some sacrifices with your team now. Last season, you could have just had like the best team, basically. You could have had Haaland, Palmer, Saka, Son. You could have had basically anyone that you wanted last season. But now that's not the case. You have to pick and choose. You have to make some pretty big decisions when it comes to which players to leave out and which players to have in your team. I think that's going to open the game up and make it really, really fun. And it's going to be less template, less like everyone having the same team that we've had the last few seasons. I think this season it's shaping up to be really, really fun. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's go into my team and my thinking going into Game Week 1 currently. Like I said, 1 week away from the deadline. So let's go into the team, and yeah, I'm basically going to go select the most expensive players first in my team, in each position, I guess, and then move along as we go and just talk a little bit about my choices so far. So firstly, the question of Haaland or Salah, it is one answer for me, and that is both, basically. I think they're premium players for a reason. I think they are head and shoulders above the rest in terms of importance to have, and I think you can have a pretty good team alongside them. So for me, I'm going to go with both. I think throughout the season I'm going to switch and mix and match between them depending on their matches and stuff, but currently both City and Liverpool are starting with really easy matches, really good fixtures for both of them. I think there's probably like the ideal way to play it, I'm assuming, will be like captaining them here and there. I don't think one guy is going to be outscoring the other every single game week, so I think the best course of action is having those 2 guys as your main captaincy options, basically, and switching between them. I think that's going to be the way to go, and I think they're going to be really, really good players. Haaland is looking absolutely terrific in the preseason. He's had the whole summer off, basically, because Norway are not good enough to qualify for anything, as I know as a Norwegian guy myself, and he's looking really, really good in preseason, really lethal, scoring a lot of goals and stuff, getting a lot of chances. Just looks absolutely terrific. Salah as well has also basically had the summer off pretty much. He's also looking revitalized with this new shorter haircut, I guess you could say. So yeah, Salah always starts the season on fire. He is one of the big reasons why I had a really good season last year, where I finished inside the top 10k, and Salah was a major reason for that I had him from Game Week 1 onwards. Pretty fun to see, like a year ago now, when the launch of last season happened. Salah was not that popular at all in terms of at least engaged FPL managers, people that really pay attention to what happens with other FPL managers as well across all social media and stuff. But this season, Salah is really, really popular. It seems like he's even more popular than Haaland. So when it comes to who would I choose if I had to go for just one, I think I would choose Haaland, or I'm pretty sure I would choose Haaland. I think he's just looking too good. I know he's super expensive, but he is going to be the best captaincy option most game weeks. There's even a case for him to be the best captaincy option in Game Week 1 as well. So yeah, I think Haaland just has the highest ceiling out of any single player in the game. Man City are the 4-time reigning champions in Premier League. And Haaland is going to be the main striker there. Alvarez is going to leave now as well, so there's even less players to take his spot up front, and he plays pretty much 90 minutes every game anyway. So yeah, Haaland I think is going to be really, really good, despite having the highest price ever of 15 million. I think he's well worth it. I think you can make a really good team alongside him, even if you have Salah as well. But if I had to choose one, I would go with Haaland, but I think Salah is absolutely terrific. I've always been a huge fan of Salah in FPL, so I think going with both is the best course of action, basically. When it comes to defense, my most expensive defender is not Guardiola, even though he is in my team, spoilers, but my most expensive defender is actually Ben White, and I think he is a pretty interesting player. Like, he always gets disregarded as an FPL option, but he scored the most points out of any defenders last season, had the most points per match, I think, as well, last season in defense, even more than Trent. And I think he's just the perfect mixture of Saliba and Trent, who are more popular players this season, but he's sort of like, he has the defensive solidity of Saliba, obviously playing for the same defense, and he has a bit of attacking threat, not quite as much as Trent, but he has decent enough attacking threat, especially towards the end of last season. He was really offensively minded there. I think he's still going to be really nailed. I don't really see who else will play at right back there. Calafiori back in the, or into the central defense there. It's going to make it a bit awkward when it comes to Gabriel and stuff. Timber playing on the left maybe sometimes. Zinchenko sometimes on the left. I think Saliba is the most nailed defender for Arsenal, and then Ben White is pretty close to it. Maybe he's just as nailed as well. I don't know. But I think Ben White's going to play pretty much every single match. He's going to be super offensive. He's going to be playing for the best defense in the league, at least last season. So I think Ben White, just like last year when everyone wrote him off for being 0.5 more than Gabriel and Saliba, I think that's a mistake. I think he is someone you should start FPL with, and that's what I've done with my own team, basically. They do have, the first 3 fixtures are actually really good, and then game 4 and 5 are a bit more tricky, but I think you can manage there and potentially sell and potentially keep him. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead yet, but I think Ben White is going to be a good chance that he is going to be the most high scoring player or highest scoring defender this season once again. So yeah, I think he's really good. But when it comes to defenders, I think there's another player that might rival him when it comes to points, and that is Josko Guardiola. He's another player that I have. So obviously I don't have any Trent. Trent's not in my team, but I have considered him pretty, yeah, quite a lot. I've considered Trent, but the fact that I have Salah and Haaland already makes it a bit difficult. Obviously, he's just 0.5 more than White, but I think Ben White is going to be pretty close to Trent, especially with the new rules where it seems like conceding goals now, or it seems like it's a fact that conceding goals is going to affect your bonus points more than usual. So even if Trent gets 2 assists, but then Liverpool concede 4 goals or 3 goals, he might not even get bonus still. And Ben White, if he gets 1 assist and a clean sheet, that's much higher chance of bonus points. So I think just with the bonus system, I think Ben White is going to come out on top in regards to that. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Trent. I think he's a really interesting option, obviously. But when it comes to Guardiola, he's been just super nailed. He's been the main guy for me in defense. Ben White has been a bit in and out of the team throughout these few weeks since FPL launched. But Guardiola has been in pretty much every single squad because he seems like the most nailed City defender. He's the most attacking City defender by far. And he's just fantastic. Like he's so good. He was really good at the end of last season as well. So I think he makes sense as the main guy in defense, pretty much. And he's been pretty nailed in pretty much every single squad. And there's another player that's been pretty much in every single squad as well, and that is Alexander Isak. He seems to be the template pick out of more than anyone, pretty much, when it comes to strikers at least. And for good reason. He was so good last season. He started off this season with 2 goals in his first game as well. I think he's a pretty quick starter. Callum Wilson is still struggling with some injuries, which is always the case with Callum Wilson. And that means Isak is going to play up front, and he plays Southampton in the first game. They have really good fixtures, Newcastle. So yeah, Isak I just think is pretty much a no-brainer. I think he's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of the guy. I'm a huge fan of the player. And yeah, I would not dare to go without him personally. So I think Isak is fantastic. So he's my second most expensive striker behind Haaland, obviously. But he's probably the most nailed striker that I have currently. I'm pretty happy with my strikers. I'm going to get to the third one eventually as well. But let's move on to the midfield. And my second most expensive midfielder is someone that costs only 7.0 actually. So that's the big thing with Haaland and Salah in the team. you have to make some sacrifices somewhere. I have 2 pretty expensive defenders on top of that, so the rest of the midfield is going to have to be a bit cheaper. So that means no Palmer, no Saka, no Son, no Ødegaard even, no Fernandes, nothing like that, no De Bruyne. There's quite a few decent options there, and I think eventually, probably sooner rather than later, I'm going to sell Salah to make way for one of those guys, Palmer or Saka or something like that. But for now, I think spreading the funds around, I think there's a lot of good midfielders in that 6.5, 7 million type of range, and even below that as well. And I think Eze is one of them. I think he's probably the standout pick for that price point, basically. He's going to be playing for a really resurgent Crystal Palace team. They looked really good under Glasner last season. I think Eze is going to be absolutely fantastic. He's on set pieces, all penalties and stuff now that Olise has left. And yes, Olise leaving and Mateta being at the Olympics is going to hamper them a bit at the start of the season, but I think Glasner has the capabilities to get around that and still perform really well. They've made some really good signings. Kamada has come in. He's absolutely fantastic. It was really good for Glasner at Frankfurt as well a couple seasons back. And then Ismail Assar as well has come in, and Matheus França as well, who's 4.5. I think is someone that could be a potential hidden gem eventually in the season. I think it's a bit early to go for him now, but yeah, I think Crystal Palace will be really, really good. They had just a really nice form going into the end of last season. So I think Eze, as the focal point there, as the talisman for Crystal Palace, I think he is a pretty simple choice, pretty much. And I think Crystal Palace are going to be one of the best teams, like one of the surprise teams, I guess, as far as you can say that, for this season. So I think Eze is a really good player to have as well. So let's move on to the next. Let's actually move on to the goalkeeper, because that is one of the more contentious spots, basically. And not entirely sure who to go with, but currently, depending on if he's starting or not, I'm going to go again with a Crystal Palace player, and that's going to be Dean Henderson, assuming he starts in goal, because we don't really know. That's the one big issue, or one kind of worry that I have when it comes to Henderson. I don't know if he's going to be the starting goalkeeper or not, because Johnston was injured towards the end of the last season, but at the very least, Henderson was in goal and did really, really well for Crystal Palace. They played the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea. I can't remember exactly, but they had a lot of tough matches, and they kept a lot of clean sheets in those tough matches as well. So defensively, they seem really good. They're going to get Sheikh Doucouré back in midfield. That's going to be a big help defensively as well. They brought in Shadi Riyad from Betis, if I remember correctly. He's going to be a really nice addition to the defense. Maybe Mark Guéhi goes to Newcastle, and that will weaken them a little bit. But even last season, when they had to play without Guéhi, they did pretty well. So I think they're going to be really good defensively, and I think whoever starts in goal for them is going to be really good. And it seems like that's going to be Henderson. It seems like Johnston is sort of on the cusp of being sold potentially, and Henderson is quite recently bought in for Crystal Palace as well. So I think he's going to be the starting goalkeeper for Crystal Palace, and I think the starting goalkeeper for Crystal Palace is someone that I really want to have as well in my team, basically. So let's move on to the second goalkeeper. Let's just get that out of the way as well. It doesn't really matter that much, but I think Alex Paulsen from Bournemouth is the 4.0 goalkeeper that has the best chance of starting, basically. He was brought into Bournemouth before this season. Hasn't really been a part of preseason, but that's because he was involved in the Olympics for New Zealand. So he could potentially be the new starting goalkeeper for Bournemouth, because they've had some issues at that position. They did actually have Neto as the starting goalkeeper for most of last season, and then he was dropped towards the end of the season. Travers got in there and played, but I don't think Travers is going to be the starting goalkeeper going forward either. So I think Paulsen, even though he is really young and it's probably going to be more of a long-term project, I think he has a slight chance potentially to play. But either way, I'm looking to just play Henderson as the goalie, assuming he starts. That's the only worry that I have. If I can't be sure about Henderson starting, I might have to switch goalkeeper tactics. I have thought about the Flekken-Valdimarsson combination. That seems to be the most popular thing going right now. I think Flekken and Brentford are going to have a pretty resurgent season compared to last season. Flekken was really disappointing in his first season in Premier League, but I think he's a pretty good goalkeeper, or at least he was back in the Bundesliga. So I think he is a really fine choice as well. So he's probably the guy that I would go with if I'm not completely sure about Henderson. But for now, I think Henderson is my favorite goalkeeper. Let's move on to another midfielder, and this is another one of those players that has been in pretty much every single draft that I've had, and that is Christopher Nkunku. I was pretty set to have him this season regardless of his price almost. I think I would have still found a way to have him, even if it was like 7.5, potentially even 8.0, I still probably would have had him. I think 6.5 is just way too cheap for him. Obviously, comes with the caveat that Chelsea are again changing their manager. They're again changing everything about the way they play and stuff. So they might not be the best from the start of the season, but Nkunku is going to play pretty much every game. So far in preseason, he's looked really, really good because he is at his best. He's going to be a top 10 player, if not top 5 player in the Premier League as well. He is that good. He was absolutely fantastic in the Bundesliga. He's just been struggling with injuries the last 2 seasons, but I think that's behind him. He hasn't really been injury prone before that, and I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic. So 6.5 for Nkunku, I think, is just way too cheap to ignore, basically. So I really like him. But as you can see, I have 6 players to go with about 30 million or 29.5 left in my budget. So it's going to be pretty cheap players from here on out. But let's go on to the final striker, who I'm also pretty excited about. Another player that has been pretty much in the team every single draft that I've had, and that is Rodrigo Muniz. I just liked the look of him last season. I think he looked like a really proper number 9 future world beater striker, basically. He's looking fantastic in general. Of course, both him and Fulham kind of tapered off towards the end of last season. He started off really hot when he got to start after Jimenez went out with injury and scored in pretty much every single game. But then towards the end of the season, he sort of, like I said, tapered off a bit and didn't look quite as lethal, I guess. Didn't look quite as good. But I think that's mostly down to Fulham just having nothing to play for and just like, easing up, basically. They were on the beach pretty early. And I think that affected how good or how well they played, basically. They have lost Palhinha, which could be it's probably going to be a major deficit for them, but mostly defensively. So offensively, I still think they're going to be really good. And I think Muniz is going to be the spearhead for them. And they have such good fixtures as well. So I really like Muniz for that price point. Even back when people thought that João Pedro would be fully fit for the start of the season, I still preferred Muniz over him. I think it's pretty close though. I really like João Pedro if he's back healthy, but I think Muniz is the best striker in that 6.0, 5.5 type of area where people have been looking to have their third striker. I think it's better than Chris Wood because Avoni I think is actually a better striker than Wood, so I'm not sure about Wood playing long term either. I think Muniz is more nailed as the striker for Fulham. Obviously, Raúl Jiménez is still there as well. He had a pretty good spell there last season as well, so he could be of danger for Muniz, but I think Muniz is going to be the striker for Fulham, and I think he's looked really, really good. I really like the look of him. I think he looks like a proper number 9, proper goal scorer, goal poacher, fox in the box, whatever you want to call it. I think he's really good, and the fixtures that they have are just absolutely fantastic, and that's why I have a Fulham defender as well. Actually, I've gone pretty hard on Fulham, and Anthony Robinson, who's been one of the best left backs in the league basically the last few seasons. He's pretty offensively minded. He has had 2 assists, I think, so far in preseason. He's pretty attacking. He is super nailed. 4.5 for a Fulham defense that is decent at least. Like I said, depends what happens now that Palhinha is gone. That might affect them really badly. So I'm not quite sure about this. The rest of these players, basically, apart from one, I think I'm pretty certain on. But yeah, the rest of these players, Robinson included, I'm not 100% sure about. There is going to be interesting to see if there's a 4.5 Newcastle defender that pops out. That's basically the most interesting potential player for me, I guess. Whether that's Trippier leaving and Livramento being the right back now for Newcastle, whether that's Guehi coming in and being the 4.5 central defender. There's a motorcycle driving past right now. Whether that's Guehi being a central defender or Lewis Hall being the left back for Newcastle, all those 3 options are in contention there. So if any one of those happens, I think I'm going to go with a Newcastle defender there, or even Dan Burn if he looks set to be the starting defender. I think a starting defender for Newcastle for 4.5 is going to be better than Robinson most likely, but for now I think Robinson is a pretty good pick. Also when it comes to the other defender, this is another defender another player that has been pretty locked in my team, especially lately, and that is Valentin Barco for Brighton. Playing left wing back for Brighton under a new manager who looks really promising as well. Barco's taking set pieces as well now that Pascal Gross has gone and Estupiñán is not there to play in front of Barco, and he is a really, really good talent as well. So for 4.0, I think he makes all the sense in the world to have as at least a bench option. But as you can see, Robinson, Barco, I don't really have the best defensive security, I guess. next to White and Guardiola. So that's the main issue, especially with Salah and Haaland in this team, on top of Isak and a couple more expensive players. But really like Barco. I think I'm going to try to make him a starter mostly, especially now in the early game weeks. But they do have like tough-ish fixtures to start the season, and then game week 4 and 5, I think they have really easy fixtures. So hopefully Estupiñán is out for just long enough for Barco to be a really good player to have in FPL for those few game weeks. But I think for 4.0, he's pretty much a simple guy to have as well. Let's just finish off the defense as well. I think, again, going really cheap with the defenders. As you can see, Barco is already in there, so that means the final defender is also a 4.0 defender. And I think I'm going to go with Fodder Faes from Leicester. I've also considered potentially my guy from West Ham, Johnson from Ben Johnson, I think his name is. I've started blanking on his first name now. For Ipswich, I think he could be a decent player as well, especially with Ipswich having pretty easy matches to start the season after game week 1 and 2. I think they have some tough-ish fixtures. Yeah, they have Liverpool and City in the first 2 fixtures, I think. And then after that, they have really easy fixtures. So he's also in contention, but I think Leicester is probably the team that I'm more certain of, more so than Harvard Bellis for Southampton as well. I think Faes would be the one I would go for. But again, this might also be a 4.5 defender. I think I need to bolster my defense a little bit. So I might make him into a 4.5 defender, depending on who I choose with my final midfield spot. Because my final midfield spot is basically the thing that is most up for grabs currently. But not the cheapest midfielder that I have, because that is someone that I am pretty certain I'm actually going to start the season with. And it's a pretty big shock, I guess, for most people. And he's also a fellow Norwegian, and that is Oscar Bob. I think he is really overlooked. I think he has potential to be the starting right winger for Man City, especially now with Alvarez leaving. Obviously, Bernardo Silva is still there, but he's only recently back in full training. He could also play in midfield and stuff, so there's a lot of different ways they can play this. But Bob has looked absolutely amazing in preseason. I think he's going to start both game week 1 and potentially game week 2 as well. I think if he has a really nice showing now in the Community Shield now in this weekend, he's going to be a lot more popular. So yeah, just warning you guys, I think Bob could be a really good player. 5.0 is absolutely nothing if he plays regularly for Man City. Even if he plays like every 2 out of 3 games, basically, he's going to be a tremendous asset for 5.0. He could be a potential game breaker this season. And I think from especially the start of the season, with Chelsea first game, Chelsea have conceded loads of goals in preseason. They look a bit shaky at the back, and Bob was really good playing against Chelsea in a friendly match as well this summer. So I really like the look of him from the start of the season. So he's going to be in my midfield. And that leaves only one position left, and I have 6.0 in terms of budget here, and that's why I'm a bit, I don't know, I'm not quite sure who to choose here. I have thought about another player that is pretty much going under the radar, and that is Crescencio Somerville for West Ham. I think he's going to play at left wing for West Ham. He's been really good for Leeds. He was probably the best player in the Championship last season, or at least among the best players in the Championship last season. West Ham have been crying out for a left winger, and he's going to be able to slot right in there. I think he's going to start every game, but at the same time, West Ham have so many offensive talents now. Bowen, Kudus, Paqueta, Souček plays offensive midfielder sometimes, Antonio, Fulkrug, Somerville. There's a lot of people to choose from, but I think Somerville is going to start the season. I think he's going to start most of the season, basically. So I have considered him. Obviously, 0.5 more. If I had that, I would go for Kudus most likely, because he's more nailed again. I think even Bowen for 7.5 is overlooked as well. But I think West Ham, really happy with the signings. As a West Ham fan, I'm really happy with the signings this summer. Somerville included. He's one of the guys that looked really enticing from the Championship last season. So I think I'm leaning towards having someone like that. But at the same time, this is also like the 8th attacker, basically, or him and Bob is going to be like the 8th attacker, slash Muniz. Like these 3 guys are going to fill out the rest of the squad. I think Nkunku, Isak, Eze, Salah, Haaland are going to play every single game week, and then I'm going to switch between these 3 guys. Bob, not Earthy, but Bob, Somerville, potentially, and Muniz. Another player that I thought about is, well, potentially now with the potential loan, or the loan deal that's going to happen now. Buonanotte is going to go to Leicester. If he starts regularly for them, he's also another 5.0 option that's going to be really good. That would leave me with 1 more million in the bank to choose someone else. Maybe I could go from Robinson to Peter Porro, for example, and shore up my defense a bit more. Have like 3 super starting defenders instead of having like 2 strong defenders and 3 rotation defenders. But I really like Barco. I have to mention that as well in terms of my team. But yeah, Buonanotte if he is ready to play for Leicester. If not, there's another Leicester player that I like in Mavididi. I think he is also pretty integral to what Leicester do. He's on most set pieces and stuff for them. And he's been like the talisman for that team as well in the championship. So I think he is also a really nice option for 5.5. I've also thought about potentially Antoine Semenyo as well for Bournemouth. I'm a bit unsure what's going to happen if Solanke leaves for Spurs. Semenyo might play as a striker. He was a forward last season in the game, and I think he could play as a striker. And I think he's a terrific player. I think he's a terrific guy as well. I watched like an interview with him, and I was really impressed with just him in general. I'm a pretty big fan of him in general, but I'm not quite sure if he's going to play as a striker or even... He looks pretty nailed for them, but they have a lot of wingers as well if he doesn't play as a striker. I think Enes Unal is going to be the striker long term, but he seems to be injured at the start of the season. So Semenyo is another one that I'm considering here, but I'm pretty much open for suggestions when it comes to 6.0 or below midfielders. I'm not quite sure who to choose. Let me just check the main guys here. Gallagher, Andreas, Pereira, potentially Dokore I've actually been interested in slightly, but probably not. Somerville is probably who I'm leaning towards currently still, but yeah, I'm not quite sure about this yet. It is also, again, I want to play Bob most of the first few game weeks. I think I might even do an early wildcard as well, potentially. And I'm also going to save up some transfers to be able to switch around the team potentially. But I think for now, Somerville is going to be my guy here as my final midfielder. But yeah, overall my team, the depth in the team is a bit lacking. There are some really cheap defenders, especially this BARCOOOOO Faes Robinson thing. Might be a bit too cheap. Might have to change that. The goalkeeper, like I said, not entirely sure on Henderson, but if he starts, he's going to be for sure my starting goalkeeper. Really like White, really like Guardiola. Salah, Haaland is pretty much, yeah, I'm pretty much decided that I'm going to go with both of them, but I haven't really tinkered too much without them either. So maybe once I do that and I realize that I can get so many more players and have like a more width in my team, more depth in my team, maybe I consider dropping Salah down. Maybe if Jota starts every single game or looks set to start the season, if I knew he was going to play every game, I probably would downgrade Salah to him just because he's so much cheaper. But as of right now, I'm pretty locked in with Salah, Haaland, and Isak as well as the most expensive players. And Guardiola I really like, and Ben White I really like. So it's not going to leave too much when it comes to the rest of the players. But really excited about Bob. I think he is someone that could play for the first few game weeks if you look at his matches. Chelsea, Ipswich, West Ham, Brentford. Really nice matches. The Chelsea match away, it says that it's 4 on the fixture difficulty rating, and it's a tough game, but City have been able to score at will against Chelsea, both in preseason, both in last season as well, in the 4-4 match. I think Bob is going to start, and I want to start him as well in my team. So that would leave out Somerville, I guess, against Aston Villa potentially, or Muniz against Man United, or potentially even Nkunku against Man City. I would have to choose one of them to be benched for the first game week. So yeah, that's pretty much my team. Let's see if I can confirm the transfers here and set up the team as well. Let's see if this looks good on the camera. It looks not too good. Let's do this. At least we get the defenders and a bit of the bench players. The goalkeeper is going to be Henderson. He's going to come in for Paulson here. And then we would have Guardiola in defense, along with Ben White, and BARCOOOOO I think would start as well. Salah obviously would start, and Nkunku potentially on the bench. Not quite sure. I might change that as well. Captain, I would probably just go with Salah, but I do like Isak. I do like Haaland as well as captaincy options. And then I have to choose between Muniz, Somerville, and Nkunku, I guess, for the final spot there. But I think BARCOOOOO in Everton seems pretty good. Robinson could potentially go with him, but yeah, I think that's how I would set it up currently. Like I said, the depth isn't the best, but at the high top end level, I have Salah and Haaland, and I'm pretty happy with that team in general. But this is probably going to change a lot for the start of the season. There's always a lot of tinkering happening pretty much all the time. But also what I forgot to mention at the start of the video is the fact that the FPL guide is live. As you can see above me here, you can go into the description of this video and check out the FPL guide that I have at thefplscope.com/FPL guide. You're going to get a couple different squad suggestions, a couple of mentions about how you should use your chips and stuff. All lineups, all 20 lineup predictions you have, where I also have like the kit number is representative of how many starts I think each player will have. So it's kind of a guide of who's the most nailed, who's the least nailed in terms of the starting 11s. I have to update all of this because I haven't really been focused on that the last few weeks due to what has happened in my family and stuff. But now that that is cleared and my mind is cleared and stuff, I'm going to be updating the guide every single day until FPL launches a week from now, basically. So really looking forward to it, really looking forward to the season, looking forward to tinker more with this team as well, because I think going through it now, talking it through, kind of more worried about the team that I was going into this video. So, but yeah, I'm pretty confident in the team as well. I really like a lot of these players. I think Bob is going to be a hidden gem, potentially. I really like having Salah and Haaland. I really like Isak. I say, yeah, I like most of the players. It's just the players that you leave out is always the problem, I guess. But that's the good thing about this season of FPL. You have good problems to have, I guess, where you have too many good players to choose from, and there's a lot of different ways you can play FPL this season, and I think that's going to be super exciting. And yeah, any one of you guys who wants to challenge me and everyone else in this FPL Scope community, you can join the mini league. You can see the league code above me there. The league code is CVSRAQ. Again, CVSRAQ to join the mini league. It would be nice to see if you can beat me. I think last season I ended up 2nd overall in the mini league. I ended up 8k. As you can see, I'm gonna edit that to be in below me. Basically my rank from last season, because it's nice to know for you guys watching the video, if you haven't seen me before, to know that I actually slightly know what I'm talking about at least. But now, yeah, now I can flaunt my rank because I was in the top 10k last season. I was pretty happy with that. So either way, that's pretty much it for me. I rambled now towards the end of the video, which I usually do. I'm doing really well, obviously, and really excited for the season, like I mentioned a couple of times now. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for watching. There's going to be a lot more content coming up next week leading into the start of the season. I have a couple of different things planned that I'm going to show you. I'm going to also do, hopefully, a podcast with my co-host Kevin, the FPL Scope podcast, where we talk a little bit about our teams and a couple other things as well, the new players coming in, and some other stuff, some other fun stuff for sure. So hope you look forward to that content. Hope you subscribe to the channel to be able to watch more videos like this and different videos as well. And I also, like I always say, I'm looking to update graphics, intro video, thumbnails, all that stuff. But yeah, again, I haven't had the time to do that lately. But I think I'm most likely going to do like a revamp of the channel for like the first international break, which is between Game Week 3 and Game Week 4. So you can look forward to that as well. But with that, finally, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.